Bob Mueller has handed over his report. William Barr needs. Editors note the opinions in this article are the authors, as published by our content partner, and do not necessarily represent the views of MSN or Microsoft. The Department of Justice announced on Friday that Special Counsel Robert Mueller had given a final report in the Russia investigation to Attorney General William Barr. There are still major. During his confirmation hearings and since, Barr has suggested he might go the latter route, for his reading of the Justice Department's regulations governing special counsels and other departmental policies and practices. Invariably, make no mistake, Barr saw ad nauseam repetition of claims that internal regulations will guide his decision bears all the hallmarks of floating a baseless pretext for suppressing evidence turned up by Mueller. Congress must immediately reset the debate, by showcasing the overwhelming legal case for full access. Mueller's investigation. Congress has irrefutable need and authority to get at his findings, under pertinent laws and under its constitutional authority for legislation, oversight, and for determining whether to initiate impeachment proceedings. Repeatedly, Senate and House members have demanded whether Barr will release any Mueller report to Congress and the public, just as often, Barr that his touchstone for disclosure will be the DOJ Special Counsel regulation enacted by the Clinton administration, which he will follow scrupulously and in good faith. He has gone on to, in effect, Barr has channeled the debate into a narrow space where he and the Trump administration could craft a defensible rationale for withholding potentially damning evidence defensible enough, at least, to keep shaky Republican legislators in the administration's camp. In fact, Barr's construct has got the relevant law, facts, and history all wrong, and nevertheless, that construct has drawn surprisingly little questioning, even from administration critics. In brief, here are 3 key points Congress should spotlight to reframe the debate. First, what Congress needs to see is not some final conclusion of a report that, as Barr correctly recites, the DOJ regulation directs Mueller to provide, in confidence, to the Attorney General. The function of that. Second, as House Intelligence Committee Chairman and several experts, most recently, Georgetown University's, have elaborated, counterintelligence, not potential criminal wrongdoing, was the focus of Mueller's original writ of authority. A Mueller was first by Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein to continue the investigation into Russian interference in the 2016 election and any links to the Trump campaign and administration, begun by former FBI Director James Comey as part of the DOJ's counterintelligence mission. A federal statute the department and other executive agencies to keep the Congressional Intelligence Committees fully and currently informed of all intelligence activities. Rosenstein's experts, who advised Clinton's DOJ on drafting the special counsel regulation, have powerfully that its provisions were never intended to sanction suppression of evidence of high-level official conduct like that examined by Mueller. Former senior. Finally, Congress' constitutional impeachment authority unequivocally trumps any asserted executive branch imposed constraints on the legislature's access to Mueller's results. To be sure, wherever those chips fall, knowledge of the special counsel's findings will bolster bipartisan acceptance of that process and, presumably, the decision itself. Ultimately, a focus on counterintelligence facts which may have nothing to do with criminal liability but are crucial to Congress' constitutional role so could improve Congress' political and policy-making environment. Spotlighting Trump.
Raindrop, drop top, top smoking, no cooking the hot pot. Fucking on your bitch, yeah, that. Looking up in the park,